People always believed that a man like Keanu Reeves had everything in life: fame, respect, money, success. But the truth that very few people knew was that his heart had always remained simple, gentle, and quiet. And tonight, everything inside that quiet heart was changing, though slowly, softly, like a candle being lit in a silent room. Because tonight was the night Keanu decided to do something that scared him more than any action scene or stunt he ever performed. Tonight was the night he planned something beautiful for Sandra Bullock. Something that came not from Hollywood, not from fame, not from expectations, but from his soul. The story begins on a cold evening in Los Angeles, where lights glowed across the city and people hurried through their lives. Keanu was sitting in his living room, staring at a single cup of tea he had made, but barely touched. He had been thinking about Sandra for weeks, maybe months. The way she laughed like she was trying not to disturb anyone. The way she listened when others spoke, even when the world didn't listen to her. The way she carried her own pain, quietly, but still showed kindness to everyone she met. She reminded him of himself. Gentle hearts often recognized each other, even before words were ever spoken. Keanu knew Sandra had gone through difficult years. She had experienced heartbreak, trust broken by people who promised to love her, and loneliness hiding behind a bright public smile. She didn't talk about it much. She didn't need to. Keanu could see it in her eyes. He knew what it was like to carry sadness quietly. He knew how heavy silence could become inside the soul. So tonight, he wanted to show her something different. Not love in a loud way. Not love that demanded or expected something in return. But love expressed through peace, warmth, respect. The kind where the hearts sit near each other and say, without speaking, "I see you. I understand you. You matter." But the fear inside him whispered, what if she misunderstood? What if she felt uncomfortable? What if he ruined everything between them? Keanu took a deep breath. He reminded himself of something important. Kindness was never a mistake. Making someone feel seen was never wrong. He was not trying to impress her. He just wanted her to feel valued. He picked up the phone and typed a message. Simple, soft, gentle. Hey, are you free tonight? I wanted to show you something. Nothing big. Just peaceful. And then he waited. The seconds felt like hours. Finally, the message came back. Peaceful sounds nice. I'll be there. Keanu felt his heart beat a little stronger. He stood up and walked across his apartment, preparing for the evening with quiet focus. He didn't hire chefs, photographers, or event planners. There were no diamonds, no fancy decorations, no red carpet. Instead, he placed simple candles on a small balcony that overlooked the city rooftops. He brewed fresh herbal tea. He placed his soft blankets over the chairs so she would not get cold. And on the small table, he placed a single white flower. Because sometimes, the most powerful gestures are the simplest ones. When Sandra arrived, she paused in the doorway, surprised. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was peaceful, gentle, warm, safe. Keanu looked at her with the quiet kindness that only comes from someone who truly understands pain and does not wish to add to it. She smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes, and without realizing it. In that small moment, something inside both of them changed. It was the beginning. The moment Sandra stepped onto the balcony, there was a silence that felt different from any silence they had shared before. It was not the silence of distance or of two people unsure of what to say. It was the silence of peace, like two souls that finally found a place to breathe. But peace, even when gentle, often brings hidden emotions up to the surface. As they sat down, Sandra softly held the warm cup of tea in her hands. She stared out at the city lights below, but her eyes were somewhere far away. Keanu noticed, of course. He always noticed. He leaned slightly closer and spoke in a voice that felt like a whisper carried by the wind. Are you okay? At first, Sandra only nodded. Then her shoulders lowered, as if she was letting go of a weight she had carried all day. It's just, life gets heavy sometimes, she said, her voice quiet but honest. And I think I forget that I am allowed to put it down for a moment. Keanu understood those words deeply. He knew heavy. He knew loss. He knew what it meant to smile while your heart carried storms. He didn't offer solutions. He didn't try to fix anything. He simply listened. Because real comfort comes from being heard, not from being drowned in advice. You don't have to carry everything alone, he answered. Not tonight. Those words sat in the space between them, soft, real, unexpected. Sandra glanced at him, her eyes shining a little, not because she was crying, but because something inside her was loosening. But just as the moment felt warm and safe, a shadow from Sandra's past entered the conversation without being invited. Because healing does not come without remembering where the wounds came from. Sandra spoke softly, like each word was fragile. People take kindness as weakness, she said. They think soft hearts can be broken easily. Keanu looked at her, his expression steady, gentle, grounded. Soft hearts are not weak, he replied. They are the strongest, because they feel everything and still choose to love. That was the moment Sandra's breath caught, because no one had ever said that to her. People admired her strength, her success, her smile, but no one had seen the quiet strength beneath her gentleness. She looked at Keanu, and for the first time, she saw him not as the famous actor the world loved, but as someone who understood pain just as deeply as she did. Keanu then stood up and motioned for her to follow him. The night air was cool, brushing lightly against them as they stepped toward the edge of the balcony. Below, the city looked endless. Lights flickered like stars that had fallen to earth. Close your eyes, Keanu said softly. Sandra hesitated. Then did. Keanu spoke slowly, carefully, as if the words mattered more than the air they traveled through. Do you hear the world? The cars, the wind, the people moving. Everyone is trying so hard to be strong, to survive, to feel like they matter. But right here, right now, just breathe. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to pretend. You are safe. Sandra opened her eyes. There was a softness in her expression now, something unguarded, something rare. Thank you, she whispered. Keanu didn't smile big. He just nodded, because some moments are too real for big reactions. But inside him, something gentle was unfolding. This night was not romantic in a loud way, not fireworks, not confessions, not dramatic music. It was slow, like two hearts learning the shape of each other's silence. And the world below them continued to rush, unaware that something sacred was happening above it. The night felt calm, almost unreal, as if time had slowed just for them. Sandra leaned back in her chair, holding the warm cup of tea with both hands. Keanu sat across from her, his posture relaxed, his eyes gentle. There was no acting here, no audience, no cameras, just two people who had seen enough of life to understand that tenderness was rare and must be protected. But even peaceful moments carry their own quiet tension. Emotions were building between them, deep and honest, but fragile. Something unspoken was forming in the air, like a soft thread connecting their hearts. It could become something beautiful, or it could break. Keanu knew it. Sandra felt it. And both were afraid to be the first to name it. Sandra's eyes wandered over the table, the single white flower, the candles glowing faintly, the simple blankets. She noticed how everything was thoughtful, gentle, and quiet, just like him. Nothing about this night was planned to impress. Everything was made to comfort. She looked at him and finally asked the question she had been holding inside. Why did you do all of this? Keanu paused. He did not rush to answer. He took a slow breath, choosing every word with care. I wanted to give you a place where your heart could rest, he said, because I know what it feels like to carry memories that hurt. And I know what it feels like to smile in front of the world while your soul feels tired. Sandra's eyes softened. Her throat tightened slightly. She swallowed. You saw me, she whispered, almost to herself. Keanu nodded. Yes, I saw you. Those three words settled inside her like warmth spreading through cold hands. But the moment of silence that followed was not empty. It was full of emotion, full of understanding, full of quiet truth. Then Sandra spoke, voice low and honest. I used to think love meant trying hard to be perfect, she said, to be enough, to keep someone from leaving. But it never worked. I kept bending myself until I almost disappeared. Keanu listened carefully. Every word mattered. Love is not something you have to earn, he replied gently. It's something you share, and the right person never asks you to disappear. Sandra looked at him, really looked. His face was calm, but there was something deep in his eyes, Something that held stories of pain, loss, and quiet resilience. He was not someone who spoke easily about his heart, but he was speaking now, and that meant something. But just as the night felt steady and secure, Sandra's phone vibrated on the table. She hesitated before checking it. Her expression changed, slightly, but Keanu saw it. It was a message from someone she didn't want to hear from. Someone from her past. Someone who had left her with wounds she still carried. Her hands trembled just a little. Keanu didn't ask who it was. He didn't press. He simply placed his hand near hers, not touching, just near. A gesture that said, "I am here." Sandra let out a slow breath. "I thought I was done with that chapter," she said, sadness weaving through her voice. "I thought I had moved on." "He doesn't have power over you anymore," Keanu said softly. "Not tonight." Her eyes lifted to meet his. "How are you always so calm?" she asked. Keanu looked out at the glowing city below. "Because I learned that healing is not loud," he answered. "It's quiet. It's small moments like this. It's choosing peace when pain tries to return." Sandra's shoulders relaxed. Slowly, carefully. The night continued. The candles flickered. The city hummed below them. And the distance between them felt smaller than ever before. The night air grew a little cooler, and Keanu quietly stood up to place the blankets around their shoulders. He did it gently, making sure she felt warm but not overwhelmed. Sandra watched him, noticing the way he moved with care, not hurry. He was a man who had learned to be thoughtful through pain, not through lessons given by others. Kindness had become his language, not his performance. They both sat again, wrapped in soft warmth. A quiet moment passed, but it was not empty. It was full of things they had not said yet. Sandra took a breath, then spoke softly. "Keanu, do you ever feel afraid? I mean really afraid, of letting someone get too close?" He did not look surprised by the question. Instead, he looked at the city below, his voice quiet and honest. "I do," he said. "Because when you open your heart, you also open the door to loss. And I have lost a lot." Sandra felt something inside her chest ache gently. She had heard pieces of his story from the world, the media, interviews here and there, but the world never really understood him. They admired him, respected him, but they did not carry the weight of his memories. "Loss teaches us how to love carefully," he continued, "but it also teaches us that love is worth it, even if it scares us." Sandra looked at him for a long moment. The candlelight reflected softly in her eyes. "You're brave," she said quietly. Keanu shook his head just a little, a small humble motion. "I just try," he replied. "Bravery is just trying again after you have been hurt." The truth of that sentence settled between them. But then, something shifted. The doorbell rang. The sound broke the soft stillness of the night. Sandra's eyes widened slightly. She wasn't expecting anyone, and neither was Keanu. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Keanu stood slowly and walked to the door. When he opened it, a young woman stood there. She looked nervous, almost apologetic. She held something in her hands, an envelope. "Reeves," she said softly. "I was asked to deliver this to you. It is personal." Keanu thanked her with quiet politeness, then closed the door. He looked down at the envelope, his expression unreadable. Sandra watched him, her heartbeat gentle but alert. She knew this moment mattered. He sat back down slowly before opening it. Inside was a letter, a short one. He read it silently. Sandra waited. After a few seconds, he folded the letter and placed it on the table, next to the candle and the white flower. The room felt heavy now, not dark, but serious. "Is everything okay?" Sandra asked softly. Keanu nodded, but there was something in his eyes, something deep, something emotional, something unresolved. "It's from someone I used to love," he said, voice steady but low. "Someone who left, someone who is part of my past. She wrote to apologize, to say she understands now, to say she hopes I am happy." Sandra single quotes S breath caught, not because she was jealous, but because she recognized the kind of pain that does not leave quickly. "How do you feel?" she asked. Keanu looked at the city lights again. His eyes were soft, thoughtful, and a little sad. "I feel free," he said. "I didn't realize that part of my heart was still holding on. But tonight, something is letting go." Sandra felt her heart warm, not because of romance, not yet, but because healing was happening. in real time. Right in front of her. It made the night feel sacred. She reached out, slowly, carefully, and gently placed her hand over his. This time, their hands touched. Their fingers intertwined. No words were needed now. The silence returned. But this silence was love beginning to breathe. Their hands stayed together, fingers gently intertwined, not forced, not rushed. It was the kind of touch that didn't ask for promises or explanations. It simply said, "I am here." And for both of them, that was something rare and meaningful. The candles flickered softly on the table. The city below continued moving, unaware of what was happening above. But in that small balcony, the world felt quiet and safe. Sandra took a breath, slow and steady. She could feel her heartbeat, not fast, but strong. And for the first time in a long time, it did not feel like her heart was trying to protect itself. It felt open. "Keanu," she said softly, her voice gentle, "I am scared of feeling something again." Keanu did not let go of her hand. He just held it, with the kind of strength that didn't trap, it supported. "I know," he answered. "I am." Their eyes met. There was honesty there, pure, real honesty, the kind many people spend their whole lives searching for. "What if it hurts again?" Sandra whispered. Keanu looked at her with calm understanding. "Then we will heal again. And we will keep healing, as many times as it takes. But we do not have to run from something beautiful just because the past was painful." His words were slow, grounded, gentle. They did not rush. They did not try to impress. They simply existed in truth. Sandra closed her eyes for a moment, letting those words settle into her heart. But life is never still for long. Her phone lit up again. Another message from the past she thought she had escaped. "We need to talk," the message said. 3 simple words, but heavy with memories. Sandra's breath trembled. The past was trying to pull her back, to remind her of heartbreak, of disappointment, of betrayal. Keanu saw her expression shift. He didn't speak. He simply removed his hand from hers, but only so he could place both of his hands gently over hers now, giving her his full presence. "Sandra," he said quietly, "you do not owe your past any more of your heart. The people who hurt you do not get to take pieces of you forever." Her eyes filled, not with sadness, but with release, a release she didn't even know she needed. "But part of me still wants answers," she admitted. "Part of me wants closure." Keanu nodded. "Closure does not come from them," he said gently. "Closure comes the moment you choose yourself instead." The words hit deep, deep enough to make her exhale. Like she had been holding her breath for years, she placed the phone face down on the table. "Then tonight, I choose peace," she whispered. Keanu smiled, not wide, not dramatic, but soft and true. "Good," he said. They stayed like that, hands held, hearts quiet, candles burning low. But something inside both of them had shifted. Not into romance yet, not into love that needed labels or promises, but into something real. After a while, Sandra looked at him, her expression gentle and curious. "Did you plan all of this?" she asked softly. Keanu smiled a little. "No," he answered. "I just wanted to make sure you felt safe." She nodded, understanding. Because safety, true emotional safety, was rarer than diamonds, rarer than fame, rarer than anything either of them had ever known in their careers. And tonight, they had found it in each other. The night grew later, the sky quieter, the city dimmer. But their hearts were waking up. Slowly. Carefully, beautifully. The sky began to darken even more, and the soft night breeze became cooler. The candles now burned low, small flames dancing gently in the quiet. Sandra and Keanu sat close, wrapped in the blankets, their hands still softly held together. Time felt different now, as if hours were passing slowly, with care, with attention, with meaning. Sandra turned her head and looked at Keanu, not the actor, not the public figure, not the man the world had built stories around. She saw the real him, the man who carried love quietly, the man who understood pain without speaking it, the man who offered warmth without asking for anything in return. "Keanu," she said softly, "tonight, it feels like something changed." Keanu looked at her with gentle eyes. "Something did," he replied. "We stopped hiding from our hearts." Those words settled into the moment. Not heavy, not dramatic, just true. Sandra breathed slowly, as if taking in a new kind of air. "It's strange," she whispered. "I didn't think I would ever feel comfortable like this again. Not with anyone." Keanu nodded with understanding. "I didn't think I would either," he said. "But maybe to people who have been hurt learn how to hold each other carefully." Their fingers intertwined a little tighter. The night around them felt like a shield, like the world had paused to give them space to heal. But healing does not only come from what is spoken. Sometimes it comes from what is shared in silence. For a few moments, they simply sat together. No words, no movement, just presence. Then Keanu stood slowly and said, "Come with me." Sandra stood, following him without question. He led her inside, through the quiet living room, and toward a piano in the corner. It was old, worn, wood slightly faded, clearly used, clearly loved. Keanu sat at the piano and placed his fingers gently on the keys. Sandra stood close, watching quietly. He began to play something soft, something slow, something filled with longing and memory. A melody that sounded like a heart learning to trust again. There were no lyrics, no explanation, just music. Sandra felt her chest tighten, but not with pain, with recognition. She knew this feeling, the feeling of being seen, of being understood, of being met exactly where she was. She closed her eyes and let the sound fill her. It was not a love song. It was not a confession. It was a story. Their story, silent, gentle, unfolding. When he finished, the room felt different, like something had been released, like a door inside both of them had finally opened. Sandra sat beside him. Their shoulders touched lightly. "Keanu," she whispered, "thank you. For tonight. For everything." He didn't say "you're welcome" in the usual way. Instead, he looked into her eyes with a quiet sincerity and said, "You never had to earn it." Those words touched a place inside her she had kept closed for years. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. He let it rest there, steady and warm. They did not call it love. They did not rush into promises. They did not try to name what was happening. They simply allowed themselves to exist together. To hearts with scars. Two souls that had survived so much. To people who found peace, not in dramatic moments, but in the quiet ones. Outside, the city kept shining. Life continued below, but up. Here, in this small space of warmth and light, something beautiful had begun. And maybe, just maybe, it was only the beginning.